We're going to turn now to party politics. Well, it seems like a simple concept, but one that hasn't latched on yet, and that is No Labels. Well, that's the name of a new group, No Labels, whose goal is to tame what they call hyper-partisan political climate in this country by dropping party labels. Kiki McLean is a longtime Democratic strategist. She's a veteran of the Clinton White House, and she's here with us to talk about this. So, Kiki, you had quite a kickoff for your group yesterday.
We did. 1,000 people from all over the country came into New York yesterday. People paid their own way, took their time off from their jobs and their families, and came together to have a conversation. There were Republicans and Democrats and independents, all people who may be proud of their party or looking for something more and different. This is going to be a national grassroots effort to push back against hyper-partisanship, like you said.
Well, is what you're saying we don't need political parties anymore?
No. This is not a third party. It's not an effort to run anybody for president. I'm a Democrat, and I'll always be a Democrat as far as I can see into the future, but I want to make my party stronger. When what we do is dig our heels in, and we won't even begin a conversation by looking for common ground, but looking for how we can make sure somebody else loses, we don't move forward. And as a Democrat, if we're not helping take care of people and doing what's needed for our country, my people are going to lose. My party's going to lose. What I want to see is a time and a place where people work together for the common good. So problem solving is first, labels are second. We want to make sure people can leave their labels at the door.
Michael Bloomberg was a part of this. A lot of people immediately thought, well, I guess this means he's going to run as a third-party candidate because he's a part of your group.
Well, no, then you'd have to say that everybody else who was there yesterday is going to run for president, because we also had some great people like Kirsten Gillibrand, Tom Davis, a former Republican member of Congress. We had some great leaders there, Mayor Cory Booker, Antonio Villaraigosa from LA, and I don't think any of them have presidential campaigns announced yet. But what we did have was a real conversation about how you solve problems and what we can do. Right now, culturally, we've set up the political process so that you get beat up if you reach across the aisle. People immediately from the extreme come and say, don't you dare sit at the table with that guy. Don't you dare go to the table with that woman. They're bad people. Well, how much can we solve if that's where we start? We want to flip this on its head and say, nope, we're going to actually demand that you be willing to work across the aisle.
So how do you do it?
How do you do it? It starts at the very grassroots level. It means that I did something, and as a Texan, you'll appreciate this. Last week, Senator Coburn was on an interview, a very conservative Republican member of Congress from Oklahoma, went on the air in an interview on Morning Joe, and a particular reporter said, no, what do you say about Senator or President Obama? Do you think he's a deficit hawk or one of those loose liberal spenders like they say in your party? And Senator Coburn refused to take the bait. He looked up and he said, the president's a friend of mine, and I think he loves this country. I'm not sure where he's going to come out on this. It's moments like that that we have to praise. It's moments where we can get up in the conversation. Right now, you have people from the extremes on both sides who dominate the conversation. Yep. They threaten, they cajole. There is a vast middle, a vast and broad middle in America where we're trying to help people gather up with like-minded people and make their voice heard.
Here is where I think your greatest challenge is.
Yeah.
In order to get elected to public office now, one has to raise so much money that one has to sign off with so many interest groups before you get to Washington, that once you're here, your positions are set in stone, and that's why it is so hard for these people to compromise now.
But isn't it amazing? Wouldn't it be amazing?
So how do you change that?
Well, wouldn't it be amazing if we had 1 million people and no labels? And wouldn't it be great if all of a sudden you heard from No Labels? Let me give you an example. Last year on climate change, forget what your position was, if you believe in it or not, what we should have done or not done about it. But when Lindsey Graham and Joe Lieberman and John Kerry sat down, boy, Lindsey Graham had people on him immediately. Don't even sit down with them. Boy, John Kerry had people on him. Don't sit down. What if they heard from 100,000 Americans in No Labels saying, we're not dictating what the policy position is on this, but you stay at the table. You find an answer. You don't walk away from it. You stay put until you get something, and we'll be here to back you up. I want our elected officials to know, and it's not just Congress, by the way, and governors' mansions and state legislators and county commissioners. I want them to know that when they do the right thing, we will be there for them. And just like you said, in a lot of ways. Maybe in a primary, I'll contribute to the person I think who's going to make the effort as an individual. Maybe publicly, I'll go out and blog like I did for Senator Coburn. I mean, it's one thing for a Democrat to praise a Republican. It's another thing from somebody from Texas to say something about somebody from Oklahoma. And I did that last week because this has to change. It doesn't mean I don't love my party. It means I want my party to be stronger and better. You know, I'm always proud to brag that LBJ played the role he did in civil rights. But the reality is, he was a Democratic president who did not do this alone. There was a Republican leader named Everett Dirksen from Illinois who put a lot of his own capital on the line to make profound and moral change in our country. And that didn't come by digging his heels in and not being willing to go to the table on it.
That's exactly right. And Lyndon Johnson understood that.
He did.
And appreciated
He
that.
did. But he was there because America was there with him. And I think what Mark McKinnon and John Avlon and Bill Galston and some of the other folks who have helped put this together with Nancy Jacobson have discovered is that there are millions of Americans who want this. And I think that the number of folks who showed up at this time of year in this kind of economy to make their voice heard demonstrate that there's a real hunger for it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I really wish you well in this, because I think it's going to take something like this, because right now what we have is a Congress that's basically dysfunctional, that can't directly move on the most important issues. They just nibble around the edges. So if you're successful, this will be a very good thing for this country.
Thank you
very much, Kiki.
I'm glad to be here.